Picture this, a fog-choked London street in the 1860s, the gaslights flickering like faint stars against soot-streaked stone, carriages rattle by, their wheels echoing over cobblestone. Beneath the pale glow of a shop front window, a curious scent wafts into the night, rosewater, musk, and something darker. Inside, a woman in silk leans in as another cloaked in velvet and mystery whispers, "For a mere guinea I can make you beautiful forever." This wasn't a seance. This was commerce, and the woman making the promise was Madame Rachel, a name that shimmered like a spell across London's high society. Her potions promised youth, love, and even redemption. Her salon, draped in exotic silks and lit like a sanctum, became a shrine to transformation. She wasn't just selling a face cream, she was selling salvation. But beauty in the Victorian age came at a cost. And beneath the allure of exotic elixirs and magnetic dew waters lurked something much more sinister. Her treatments weren't just ineffective, some were toxic, others pure illusion. And for many of her most desperate clients, aging heiresses, lonely widows, scandal-shadowed debutantes, the price wasn't just gold, it was ruin. This is not just a story about a fraud. It's a story about the fear of aging, the obsession with appearance, and the dangerous power of a woman who understood exactly how to exploit both. Think of it as Goop meets Penny Dreadful, a gothic beauty cult masquerading as a miracle salon. Welcome to the rise and fall of Madame Rachel, the Victorian influencer who sold poison for profit. Chapter 1. The Allure of Eternal Youth. In Victorian England, beauty wasn't just desirable, it was destiny. Pale, almost ghostly skin was the ultimate sign of refinement. It meant you didn't toil outdoors like the lower classes. Rosy cheeks hinted at vitality and innocence, while soft, uncalloused hands marked you as untouched by labor. Appearance wasn't just superficial, it was social currency, and in a society rigidly stratified by class and gender, the right kind of face could open doors that a fortune alone could not. But behind the porcelain perfection lay a macabre truth. Achieving these ideals often meant courting death. Arsenic wafers sold over the counter and advertised in women's magazines promised to brighten the complexion by literally killing red blood cells, creating the coveted ethereal pallor. Lead-based powders concealed blemishes while slowly corroding the skin underneath. Mercury was used to fade freckles and spots, even as it caused tremors, tooth loss, and madness. Belladonna drops, named from the Italian for beautiful women, dilate the pupils to give eyes a soft dough-white look, at the cost of blurred vision and eventually blindness. The rituals of beauty became a Gothic ballet, elegant, fatal, and deeply embedded in the era's obsession with female fragility. Amid this pursuit of youth, a new figure emerged from the London fog. Sarah Rachel Russell, born into poverty as the daughter of a fish fryer, transformed herself into mysterious Madame Rachel. She was not merely a beautician, she was a performance, draped in veils and mystery. She proclaimed herself the Arab perfumer to nobility, claiming access to exotic ancient secrets passed down from desert mystics and eastern queens. It was a calculated reinvention, designed to tantalize London's elite with whispers of the forbidden and the foreign. Her salon, tucked among the elegant storefronts of New Bond Street, was a stage set for seduction. Heavy velvet curtains shielded curious eyes from within. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, musk, myrrh, attar of roses. Delicate glass vials lined the shelves like relics from another world. It was part apothecary, part theater, and part entirely hypnotic. This was not the cold sterility of modern spas. It was alchemy, mystery, and indulgence, a secret garden for the rich and restless. Her clientele came from drawing rooms and dowager houses alike, aging duchesses, scandal-dodging debutantes, lonely widows. Some were battling the cruel march of time. Others were fighting the harsher judgment of polite society. But all of them wanted what Madame Rachel promised, transformation. Not just smoother skin and fewer wrinkles, but redemption. The erasure of age, of shame, of unfulfilled potential. She sold them concoctions like liquid bloom of Arabia and magnetic rock dew water, swearing that they could rejuvenate even the most tired complexion. And the truth, many were little more than scented oils, occasionally laced with harmful ingredients that did more damage than good. But it didn't matter, because what Madame Rachel truly sold was the illusion of control. In a world where a woman's value withered with every birthday, she offered a lifeline, a way to hold time still, if only for a moment. She wasn't just selling beauty, she was selling hope, and in the fog-drenched streets of Victorian London, that was perhaps the most intoxicating product of all. Chapter 2, A Face Cream of Lies. Madame Rachel's so-called beauty treatments were nothing short of theatrical sorcery. Potions with poetic names, cloaked in mysticism and false science. Her most infamous creation, magnetic rock dew water, was claimed to be infused with magnetic energy and spiritual blessings, allegedly capable of drawing out impurities and restoring a youthful glow. Liquid bloom of Arabia promised to return a woman to her maidenly prime, to restore, in her own flowery words, the virgin bloom to any lady's cheek. To the hopeful and the aging, it sounded like a miracle. To the cynical, it was a fantasy, but fantasy sells, and in Madame Rachel's hands it sold for a king's ransom. Treatments often ran into the hundreds of pounds, sometimes more. Today's terms, they would equate to tens of thousands of dollars. And yet the salon doors never stopped swinging open. To be seen at Madame Rachel's was paradoxically a mark of both desperation and privilege. It was a place where secrets were bought, sold, and whispered over crystal jars of scented oil. But what truly drew women into Rachel's orbit wasn't the concoctions. It was Rachel herself. She was intoxicating. She knew how to read a woman's insecurities with the precision of a surgeon. Her voice was soothing, her gaze intense. She played the mystic, the exotic healer, the wise older sister. Clients didn't just confide in her, they unraveled. And Madame Rachel knew exactly how to weaponize that vulnerability. She became more than a beautician. She was a confessor, a keeper of skeletons, a manipulator wrapped in silk. She exploited emotional wounds with surgical skill, promising not just beauty, but belonging. Some women saw her as a friend. Others fell under her spell entirely. There were rumors never proven, but persistently whispered, of romantic entanglements, of clients so entranced they mistook her influence for intimacy. In society that often silenced female desire, Rachel offered a space where yearning was acknowledged, then exploited. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching tale is that of Mrs. Mary Tucker, a wealthy widow whose tragic downfall would eventually help bring Madame Rachel to trial. Tucker, grieving and vulnerable, found solace in Rachel's flattery and apparent concern. Over time, Rachel convinced her that a nobleman, a man of title and prestige, had taken a secret liking to her. If she could only make herself more youthful, more alluring, he would propose. It was a romantic fiction that Rachel wore with increasing complexity, each new detail requiring another costly treatment, another bored jewel, another desperate letter. Tucker spent nearly everything she had trying to chase a future that never existed. Eventually, reality shattered the illusion. Tucker found herself penniless, emotionally broken, and publicly humiliated. But even then, some part of her clung to the fantasy. That's what made Madame Rachel's crimes so chilling. They weren't simple cons. They were emotional labyrinths, a psychological warfare wrapped in rosewater and velvet. Madame Rachel didn't just rob her victims of money. She robbed them of dignity, of clarity, of the belief that they had agency over their own lives. In her salon, beauty was not a choice, it was a trap. Chapter 3. Scandal, Arrest, and a Society Obsessed. In the late 1860s, the gilded fantasy that Madame Rachel had so carefully constructed began to fray. Behind closed doors, whispers turned into murmurs, then into full-throated accusations. Disillusioned clients, their bank accounts drained and their wrinkles still present, began to question the alchemy she had promised. Chemists who analyzed her potions found not mystical Eastern elixirs, but harmful ingredients, corrosive acids, metallic salts, even lead compounds. Treatments that were meant to rejuvenate had in many cases ravaged the skin, and beneath the perfumes and promises a darker pattern emerged, one of a calculated emotional exploitation and financial ruin. In 1868, the illusion shattered publicly, spurred on by high-profile complaints, most notably from the broken and humiliated Mary Tucker. Madame Rachel was arrested on charges of fraud. What followed was less a trial than a full-blown cultural event. The courtrooms were packed with curious spectators, and the newspapers, ever hungry for a scandal that combined wealth, deception, and feminine mystery, feasted on the details. Headlines blared accusations of sorcery, seduction, and beauty enhancements. They painted Rachel not just as a swindler, but as a kind of gothic villain, half witch, half courtesan, and a predator draped in pearls and patchouli. The fascination wasn't simply about her crimes, it was about her. Victorian England had no framework for a woman like Madame Rachel. Bold, entrepreneurial, and manipulative. She didn't merely exist within the rigid boundaries of female respectability. She danced across them in heels. She had turned beauty into power and power into profit, and in doing so exposed a societal nerve. What frightened the public was not just that she fooled women, it was that she understood them too well. She identified the ache beneath the powder puff and corset, and she exploited it. The courtroom buzzed with tales of duped noblewomen, secret rendezvous, love letters forged or manipulated. Witnesses cried, spectators gasped, and through it all, Rachel remained composed. Her poise, unnerving to some, fascinating to others, she was ultimately convicted and sentenced to hard labor, a punishment meant not just to correct, but to publicly shame. It was a dramatic fall from grace, but even behind prison walls, Madame Rachel's legend refused to fade. Years later, upon her release, she did the unthinkable. She returned to beauty. Still claiming access to her mystical recipes, she tried to restart her business. Even now disgraced, there remained a grim curiosity. Could she really have known something the rest of them didn't? Could the promise of transformation still be real? The public, both repelled and enthralled, watched closely. Because the truth was, Madame Rachel had sold more than creams or masks. She had sold a fantasy that women had been taught to crave, eternal youth, undeniable allure, the ability to rewrite one's place in society not through birthright, but through appearance. And even as her empire collapsed, London couldn't quite look away. In fact, they were still watching. Chapter 4, Legacy of a Gothic Beauty Cult. In many ways, Madame Rachel was ahead of her time, a 19th century blueprint for a now familiar figure. The beauty guru turned wellness mogul, her salon with its velvet draped mystique and whispered promises prefigured the curated luxury of modern wellness spaces, crystal-infused skincare, chakra-balancing facials, and anti-aging miracle serums with a price tag that whispers exclusivity. Her mysterious magnetic dew-rock water is not so far removed from today's $300 eye creams, boasting rare algae extracts and rejuvenating DNA peptides. And her persona, a compelling fusion of healer, seductress, and visionary entrepreneur. Picture a gothic hybrid of Gwyneth Paltrow, Elizabeth Holmes, and a Victorian clairvoyant, selling not just skincare, but a salvation narrative tailored to the anxieties of her time. But beneath the glamour and snake oil was a deeper, more unsettling truth. Madame Rachel understood something Victorian society preferred to keep hidden, that beauty was never just about looking good. It was about survival, social power, marrying well, remaining visible in a world that erased women as they aged. She didn't create the fear of aging, she exploited it. Her genius lay not in chemistry, but in psychology. But she turned the impossible pursuit of eternal youth into profitable illusion, then monetized the shame women had been taught to carry. Her fall, dramatic as it wasn't just the story of one woman exposed. It was the shattering of a collective delusion. And yet society didn't learn from it. Instead, it evolved the game. And today we see the same cycle repackaged in sleek branding and sponsored posts. Influencers push collagen powder, waist trainers, and clean girl aesthetics that echo in the same message Rachel once whispered behind her salon curtains. You are not enough, but we can fix you for a price. MLM beauty schemes target financially vulnerable women, promising independence while delivering manipulation. TikTok skincare routines suggest that with enough serums and effort, you can delay not just wrinkles, but irrelevance. The formulas have changed, the poison is more palatable, but the promise is still the same. Madame Rachel was a grifter, yes, but she was also a mirror. Her empire was built not just on lies, but on a culture that needed those lies. She emerged from the cracks of society that commodified femininity, aging, and desire. And in that way, her story isn't just historical, it's cyclical. Because even now, when we scroll through curated feeds or clutch our favorite serum like a talisman, we're echoing that same gothic longing for transformation, for control, for beauty as a weapon, a shield shield, a spell. We no longer use arsenic wafers, but the poison, it's there. It's been rebranded. Chapter 5, The Cult of Beauty Then and Now. Long after Madame Rachel's velvet salon faded into history, the cult she helped build only grew stronger. Her name may have vanished from beauty counters, but her legacy lingers, like an expensive perfume with something sour beneath the sweetness, because every generation, it seems, rediscovers the same obsession, that beauty is not just desirable, but essential, not just for attraction, but for acceptance, survival, and even salvation. In the early 20th century, women slathered their faces with cold creams laced with mercury to whiten their complexions. Others embraced liquid bleach masks that promised to even skin tone, while quietly erasing entire features. In the 1920s, radium-infused face powders and toothpaste promised an internal glow. Never mind the radiation would later cause horrifying cancers and disfigurement. Beauty came at a cost. The cult didn't warn you. It welcomed you in, handed you a jar and told you to smile. Fast forward to today and the ingredients may be safer, the packaging sleeker, but the promises? They've hardly changed. Influencers bathed in natural light exude the virtues of $400 serums, oxygen facials, and jade rollers blessed by moonlight. We see celebrity skincare lines sold as intimate access to youth and perfection. There are face masks with crushed pearl and gold leaf, collagen powders that taste like dessert, and detox teas wrapped in pastel branding. None of these products are inherently evil, but they thrive on the same mechanisms Madame Rachel perfected: mystique, class, aspiration, and the illusion of transformation. Consider the modern MLM beauty empires, designed to mimic exclusivity and female empowerment while ensnaring women in debt and social pressure, or the clean beauty movement, which sells purity while often relying on pseudoscience and fear. Even the rise of the Instagram face, with its poreless skin, inflated lips, and filtered symmetry, has birthed a new wave of obsession, where young women book injections and procedures to resemble avatars of beauty they've never actually possessed. Madame Rachel didn't invent the cycle, she simply exposed it. She understood that beauty was a form of control, something to be bought, protected, and performed. She knew that women, especially those aging or socially vulnerable, were willing to risk almost anything for a chance to rewrite how the world saw them. That's what made her so dangerous, not just her lies, but how familiar they felt. Because the cult of beauty is subtle. It doesn't demand worship, it invites participation. It flatters you, tells you're not just one product away from becoming your real self. It convinces you that to age naturally is to disappear, that to pause the chase is to surrender. And like any cult, it isolates you, makes you doubt your reflection, your instincts, and your worth. In that way, every era has its own Madame Rachel. Not always a woman in a velvet salon, but an industry, a brand, a belief system that profits from self-doubt. And in a society that still values women most when they are beautiful and young, the cult doesn't need to use arsenic anymore. It only needs to whisper, "You're not enough, but we can help you become." Madame Rachel was many things: a con artist, a visionary, a predator, and a product of her time. She understood the power of beauty in a society that made it a woman's greatest currency and her most fragile possession. But beyond the scandal, beyond the velvet and poison, her story forces us to confront something uncomfortable. The line between victim and participant, illusion and belief, is often very thin. She promised her clients that beauty could save them, that with enough cold creams, enough coins, enough faith, they could turn back time, rewrite their stories, and reclaim the world that had quietly taken away attention, desire, and agency. And though she sold lies, the women who walked into her salon weren't foolish. They were human, haunted by the same pressures that still linger in our mirrors today. Because this isn't a tale of Victorian deception. It's a haunting reflection of how little has changed. We still live in a culture where aging is treated like a failure, where beauty is a mask we're expected to wear until it cracks, where entire industries are built not on empowerment but erosion, the slow, calculated dismantling of our self-worth. Madame Rachel may be gone, but her mirror remains. And when we stare into it, frustrated with our skin, critical of our bodies, reaching for the next miracle product, we must ask, are we seeking beauty or absolution? In the end, the most dangerous thing she ever sold wasn't arsenic or oil. It was a dream. A dream we're still chasing a century after century. So the next time a brand, an influencer, or a stranger in a velvet robe offers you transformation for a price, remember, the cult of beauty always demands something in return. So thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below. It is interesting to think that they were still doing the old tricks back then, except they were poisoning you back then, and now we're just being sold all these different beauty products. I mean, maybe there's certain ingredients in ones now, and 100 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, I can't believe we were doing that or poisoning ourselves that. I mean, we'll probably look at Botox and fillers and all those things in a different light 100 years from now. So anyways, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and check out some of my other older videos.